Hello, welcome to History 209, 20th Century Europe. This is an online course through WVU, and in this introduction I'd like to talk a little bit about myself, a little bit about the course, and my expectations for you this semester. First, my name is, again, Ms. Kathleen Negley. I'm a graduate instructor at WVU. I'm working on my PhD in European history, and my specialty is Central and East European history in the modern age. I have had a lot of experience of living in Europe and teaching European history. I lived in Hungary for a number of years and then in Estonia. I've taught in American schools advanced placement in European history. I've taught internationally, International Baccalaureate European history. So I have some experience in this field, and I've done extensive readings and such. And my conception of this class is centered around a number of books, lectures, some documents you'll examine, and film. And the way that I constructed it is that you will have 5 books to read, watch one film. In each of those 5 books and the one film, you'll write a review. And if you look in your syllabus, which I hope you have downloaded at this point, which it's now in your introduction folder, it'll explain the requirements of each of these reviews. I've chosen very carefully the books of this semester. I've tried to span the century in terms of the time periods when each takes place. And I've specifically chosen all to be memoirs. And a memoir is an account of someone's personal experience of a typical or a certain age or events or etc. All of these accounts are written by Europeans who lived through different time periods and experienced different things in the 20th century. I've tried to spread the books out by regions as well. There's a book that takes place primarily in Western Europe. It's our first book, Testament of Youth. We have a book that takes place in the Far East, in the outer reaches of the European continent, if you want to call it, in Soviet Union in the 1930s. There is a book that is more in the north of Europe, and that takes place in Berlin following World War II. There's a book that takes place in the post-World War II era and into the 1960s in Central Europe, and that takes place in the Czech Republic. And I've also chosen a memoir from about the 1990s in the southeastern section of Europe in the Baltics. So the books represent different eras and different regions. I'm trying to give a wide perspective of different experiences throughout the continent. I'm also using memoirs because they're generally quite straightforward, and it's a way for people to understand history in a very straightforward manner in many ways. But they're also skewed. Everyone's personal account of history shows their own personal subjectivity, and we'll be examining how that might play out in each of these books. So we're going to approach this in a sophisticated way. Just because someone wrote it in the book doesn't mean that this is the only account of a certain time period. It doesn't mean that it somehow captures the only truth of a time period. It is one person's perspective and one person's experience about events, but it gives us a sense of the broader context of the era. The other thing you'll be doing is you'll be watching a European foreign film, and a foreign film that was made in Europe by Europeans. And I'm giving you free rein to choose that film. And if you look in your syllabus, you can one of the sources you can find these films are at the WVU library if you live outside of Morgantown. I've also given you some other ideas of your local video store, or if you use Netflix or even Amazon. you can purchase a foreign film as well. And the only requirement for these films is that it is made in Europe by Europeans. So a French foreign film is acceptable as long as the topic has something to do with the history of the 20th century. So a film account of something that happens in history, and there are literally hundreds or maybe thousands of films that would fit into this category. But I'd rather have you search through your own interest as to what that film might be and then give a review. And it can be an older film or a more recent film. And again, a filmmaker's perspective gives one vision of history, and we can evaluate how accurate that is and how authentic such a review might be. I also in your syllabus gave us some suggestions, some particularly good